Again, I'm Andy Kenzie, the creator. We're just doing this for the live stream. And then this is Nadia Velasquez, who is a licensed clinical social worker and also works with Family Eldercare and Luna Tides Counseling. So can you guys start it off just with like your background, like where you're coming from? That might give us an idea of where we're headed with the conversation today.
Yeah, so I have been a social worker since 2016. And when I was in graduate school, there was actually during my time there was a big push to get more social workers, more professionals working with the aging community. It was an area that people did not want to work in. It was very hard to get people working in older adult areas like nursing homes, hospital, also places that you don't necessarily think, but you're mostly serving older adults. And so I was introduced to working with this population during that time. And I've honestly never worked with any other population since. I've stayed in this area. There was like kind of like, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the term, the silver tsunami. Everybody was afraid the baby boomers were coming and there weren't going to be enough people to kind of provide support to them. And so I started my career after I graduated working in hospice. So I was a hospice social worker for about 4 or 5 years. And then after that, I transferred over to Family Eldercare, which is another nonprofit in the Austin area. And in this role, I specifically provide mental health services to adults age 55 and over, and I provide the services in their home. And so a lot of the people that we visit and we support are not able to get support in the community because they for whatever reason are not able to get in the community, whether it's a physical disability that prevents them from doing it, or transportation, or just accessibility. So if there's any kind of issue with them receiving services and going out to a therapist at an office, we're able to kind of go provide that to them in their home. So I don't really ever call myself an expert in anything, but I know a lot about the issues that come up with aging. I've worked in this area for over a decade at this point. And so when it comes to like hospice, advanced directives, issues that come up with aging, even, you know, what we're talking about here, like this, you know, wanting and desire to kind of have choice in ending your life. These are all issues that come up so much in the work that I do. I'm really excited to be here because I really love kind of hearing these voices and hearing this perspective, because it's not a perspective we often hear about. So that's me in a nutshell.
Cool. So do you have questions, or do you want me to ask you questions, or us to ask you questions?
Either or. I'm definitely here to kind of support whatever needs that y'all might have, or any kind of areas of interest that you might want to dig into. I think that there was quite a few issues that kind of come up that like stick out to me. But I mean, just to kind of open the floor, I'm guessing, you know, what are some things that really resonated with you at this time? And I will definitely, I'm more of a dialogue approach. I can give you information and my experience and expertise if that's what you want, but I also love dialoguing as well.
I don't know if this is the right segue to do this question I've been burning to ask for 6 weeks now, but the kit that gets delivered when you're under hospice care, I know you have to qualify to get into hospice care, but what is the kit? It has morphine, has all these drugs. It's like a standard kit of about half a dozen drugs. When do people use them? What are they for? I understood morphine being an opioid for pain, but when a person's passing, like someone's passing but they're not in pain, but they still have the morphine option that some people are in fear of. What's the purpose of the kit?
That's a great question. So the kit that you're referring to, it might be called a number of things, but we called it a comfort kit. And it's essentially this emergency kit that has usually about 3 different medications. One of the medications is morphine. One of them is something for anxiety, and the other one is something for nausea. And so these are the common symptoms that are going to cause you the most distress when you are actively dying. So this comfort kit is given to any person who's on hospice in the event that you have to use them, or you or yourself in an emergency and need to use them. The great thing about hospice is that they provide 24-hour care but it's over the phone. Most people receive hospice services in their home. And so if it's 2 a.m. and you're short of breath and you can't breathe, most people, that's going to be really alarming and scary. And so you may call hospice and they may say, hey, open that comfort kit. We're going to get you in contact with a nurse and she's going to advise you what to do next. And so they may advise you to take some of these medications until they can get a nurse out there, because that could take some time.
But what does morphine do other than pain management?
Mhm.
It seems like it slows things down, like you're not, makes you not hungry, it makes you not thirsty. I mean, what exactly is the purpose? Because I had family, my sister was in fear of morphine. We didn't administer it.
Mhm.
In hindsight, we're like, maybe we should have, because I had a friend just pass about a month ago who they did administer it,
Mhm.
and he went out way more peacefully than my sister. So what does it do besides
Mhm.
pain?
So-
Why morphine?
Mhm. So I'm not a doctor, and so a doctor would be a better person to answer that question, but it really does relax the body.
Okay.
And so it usually slows things down, absolutely. So oftentimes at end of life, you could see a lot of irregular breathing, very short breaths. And so morphine does help with slowing things down, kind of making you more comfortable, so you aren't in distress while you're breathing.
So if you were still cognitive
Yes.
and you were about to go and you had all these beautiful drugs with you, then what's to stop you from just taking them?
So what the doctors would say and the nurses would say in those scenarios is that what is offered in a comfort kit is not enough to do that. They're
okay.
very, very short, small doses. Yes. So no, but they are not giving you the package to make that choice.
Check that off.
Yes, you're not the only one who's thought about that.
I've got, so my dad's a doctor, so I don't know if you had more
Perfect,
thoughts
yes.
about the morphine.
Morphine,
Yeah,
it not only slows everything down, it slows your breathing down, and sometimes that's how you go, or you die. Because with enough of it, and quite frequently, when you're being helped for pain, or you're being helped for discomfort or anxiety, these medicines can actually make you relax so much that you
Mhm.
just pass away. So,
But not what's in the kit.
well, not with the kit, but sometimes in an effort to keep you comfortable,
Mhm.
it's hard to tell, how much is too much, how much is not enough.
Yeah.
Because with the one friend, they gave him morphine and the person from hospice cares, and they had around the 24-hour care with the nurse as well. And they administered it and it did seemed to accelerate his passing. So my question was, because he really didn't want to go.
Yeah.
So my question was the ethics of that, and do we know enough what these drugs do and so forth?
Yeah. I mean, I think, and you can fill in as well, but hospice will always say that they're not there to end your life quickly. They are there to make you comfortable dying. So that is going to be the big distinction. What they are going to prescribe to you is going to be doses that will keep you comfortable over the long run. And he's absolutely right. Dying is really hard work for some people. It's really hard. And sometimes it's helpful to have a little bit support like morphine to be calmer, to have your body more relaxed, and your ability to kind of let go. But yeah, I think that is one of like the biggest kind of assumptions and a lot of fears that people have when they're going onto hospice. How many times I've heard like they're there to kill you, or hospice, they're going to hasten things, they're going to make things quick. But in my experience in doing hospice work, there was a great range in the amount of time that I served people. There were absolutely people who got on hospice and they were actively dying, and they died, within a couple days, maybe a couple weeks. But there were also many people that I served for, I would say, like a year or two. And so there is a great range in how long you could be on hospice. And it really all depends on the reasons why you're going on hospice. And then the reality is that none of us can predict when we're gonna die. We can try our best to, we can kind of use all the science we can, but we can't ever predict that.
So I just have one last question. And that is, as hospice, knowing that you're probably gonna be passing soon and no one can predict this, of course. Do they have a moral obligation or ethical obligation to kind of knowing it's imminent, like maybe that day, that they don't leave? Or do they have the freedom to come and go as they wish? I mean, what does the services cover? What is the family to expect?
Yeah, so it really varies by the hospice and who is serving you and how many people are on service at that time. I will say that a hospice, good hospices, and not all hospices are created equally. There's a lot of privatization of hospices, but there's also nonprofit hospices as well. And going back to your question, a good hospice, if you are not comfortable, then they should not be leaving because their job is not done. They're there to keep your loved one comfortable, and that includes caregivers, right? If a caregiver is feeling like overwhelmed and scared and they don't have the support they need, that nurse shouldn't be leaving. And so knowing this and advocating for yourself, like, hey, I need more support, or maybe you can stay until, you know, my child comes, or my sister, or my whoever's there who can actually provide you more support. But are they always there when that person dies? The answer is no, because we don't ever know. We can get really close and we can kind of give you guidance on when death may be imminent. And the nurse will likely stay. If you have a good nurse and you have a good relationship with that nurse, they will likely stay as long as they can. But oftentimes, you know, what I noticed in my work in hospice is sometimes people just like to die alone. And sometimes that gives them peace. Maybe they don't want their loved one to see them in their last breath. But it's not common for people, it's not all uncommon for people to, you know, let go alone.
Dude, you mentioned that dying can be very hard.
Yeah.
I'm curious because we've been talking about the advanced directives and all the end of life planning, and Michelle and Melissa, they're occupational therapists and end of life doulas. And so have you encountered, if people have the plan in place, does it make it easier to let go? I'm wondering, just is there a correlation? Like, you figure you've made the plan, are you more comfortable, or is it really more of a physical thing that you don't necessarily have control over?
I think all of the above, right? Like, I think that there's absolutely a physical component, but I absolutely believe there's a spiritual component. And even people who say that they're not spiritual, like, there could be a spiritual component that comes up at the end. Perhaps there's unfinished business. I've seen, like, witnessed some really beautiful moments and timing where a person died, and I'm like, this was just like meant to happen this way, and it was beautiful. And then there's some moments that it's just no rhyme or reason, like it just happens. But I think that there's a lot of components, physical and I think like psychosocial, emotional, spiritual.
Mhm. And when, I think we've talked about when I think I'm hearing, through all the learning of this, that there are those signs that the body is ready to pass on. And then is it at that point that you do I'm sorry, I love you, I forgive you, that thing? Have you heard of that?
I have.
Yeah, yeah. It's, it's hard staring at my parents.
Yeah.
Like, I want to tell you right now, I'm sorry, I love you,
Yes.
and I forgive you, and you forgive me, please. And so,
You know, I mean, I think that's really such a intimate and personal kind of preference, because you're gonna get the people that say, like, I want to say this to my loved one when they are cognizant, when they're able to kind of actually hear what I'm saying. You know, on the hospice end, like, we always say that, you know, one of the last senses to go is hearing. And so, you know, playing their favorite music or telling their stories around them can be also really helpful. But as much as, you know, dying is about you personally, it's also about everybody around you. And so, you know, creating whatever moment that you're needing, you know, creating whatever closure, if there's something that you need to say and it can't be left unsaid, being like aware, like, when should I say this to my loved one? And hopefully it's before, you know, hopefully we're having these conversations now. They're hard conversations, and we talked about this the other day, like they're hard and they're difficult and they're uncomfortable. But it's so much nicer to have that out in the open than like all this uncertainty. And like, did they know this? You know, did they know I love them this much, or did they know that this was so meaningful to me? Why would you?
It seems like the people in the podcast tonight were less dedicated to doing away with themselves this week than they were previously. Like the planning had sort of become less well planned. They're going to the mall and freezing. That just seemed like that's not a very good plan. They seem to have better plans a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
A little impulsivity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was a really great point as well. I feel like the last couple of episodes are getting a little bit darker, right? Like it's going from this desire to like, hey, I want to, you know, be empowered and choose how to end my life, to actually taking it a step further to making plans. And that for me, like, is a red flag as a therapist, right? Like we're having a lot more seriousness in this type of discussion. And I love that it's humorous and it's funny, because parts of it are, but it's absolutely like, you know, when I think about this, I think of signs, you know, and like for me, a clear sign was giving up this dog, right? This dog that was, you know, something that they felt connected to and gave them meaning and kind of purpose. Like, hey, this dog is, you know, a part of a family. We have to take care of it. And like for me, the red flag is they're taking the dog to the shelter. So they are a lot more serious about this.
But to me, it seems like they're gonna save that dog.
Mhm.
And so the dog's probably gonna save them. I'm not gonna be here for the end and go on vacation. Obviously, but it seemed that them wanting to go as easily as they have all along, and how as quickly as they don't feel that important, or nobody needs them so much anymore, and they want to put them in a nursing home, and
Mhm.
just kind of, she keeps calling it, you know, a nursing home. And so now that they have this dog that needs them, I'm wondering, will the dog save them in the end, and they have a purpose? And that they're gonna struggle. a
You're
little
gonna have to
more.
listen to it while you're.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's gonna challenge-
Yeah.
The question about being impulsive about this is that, you know, Dee, in her situation, is in the progression of that. There's that part of it that they all of a sudden are doing things out of the blue. And so I mean, I can just imagine that maybe that's why, you know, she would just say, oh, I got one. Let's go freeze them today, you know. I'm exaggerating.
Yeah, no, it could absolutely be.
I mean, even no matter, I think no matter what, you can be prepared for this, and I genuinely think people do make these decisions most irrationally. But even when you're prepared for it, right? Oblivion is terrifying. And so panic sets in even when you're doing this. So it's like, well, let's not wait for this thing that will let us go relatively easily. Let's freeze to death in the mall. Where it's like your mind is just, it just starts firing. And especially when there's degrees of cognitive decline come in, or things like that, like that preparation starts to, and then the connection with the dog, and the connection with like there's almost even a strange joy in the conflicts between the children and the parents, because sometimes even that conflict is a part of that loving relationship that you have with someone that makes you feel this connection to this thing of like not wanting to go. And it doesn't mean that you're not also still prepared. It's just that those moments of it, like this idea of freezing to death in the mall doesn't feel like a serious thing.
Yeah.
Like she knows that this isn't going to work. Like this is not something. I think that's kind of where the humor and also the seriousness of it work in really good tandem in this.
Oh, actually, she thought it would work.
Yep.
She's
Did I
a
misunderstand what you
little
said?
bit petulant too, like just this like anger at Tamika of
Yeah.
like, and this shelter and all of it. And she's like, screw this world, you know, I'm ready to go. So, yeah, it is, we'd have to ask Mimi if she feels like she really thought it was gonna work. Yeah.
And,
good.
and I
Yeah.
also like see this fear because, you know, when you think about Dee and like what her concerns are, it's like losing control. And like this was, the dog incident was a purely loss of control. Like I can't even adopt a dog on my own without my daughter giving me permission. Like how crappy does that feel? Right?
And then I think also, making decisions based on, being impulsive or, out of fear or, anxiety. To me, those lead to decisions that you don't feel really sure about. You're not really certain or confident this is the right decision. And when you don't feel certain and you don't feel confident, you're not even going to share those decisions with other people because they're going to manipulate possibly or persuade you to do something different. And I think that's a huge piece in why they're not talking to their family about the decision they're making, because I don't think they're really certain and that they're very confident and that they're very clear. And I think that those three things are what make communicating easy. And I think they come from making value guided decisions, not impulsive decisions. So I think it really comes back to, I mean, even in this episode, they were making different decisions based on what they value. Like she valued, obviously preserving the life of Festi. So all of a sudden she's going to make a different decision. It's like values, when we let values guide us, then you're certain. She was certain she was getting that dog out of here. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You want to be that certain when it comes to these important decisions. Not to say that they're not going to do whatever they ultimately end up doing, but right now it appears they're making every decision out of being impulsive or lots of fear. They're being very reactionary. And so, if they could really focus on their values and then let those values guide them in their decisions, then you can feel very clear. And I think that's what everybody wants in the end, that you feel very clear about your decisions, you feel very certain that they're the right ones for you, and you feel very confident that they're the right ones for you as well. So I think.
I think, listening where you just said that, Festi, for me, is a metaphor for the whole story about what they make in their decision-making often. I'm not saying it's the whole story, but often, she was triggered today, as you said, she was triggered today because she was trying to get past the fear of losing that dog. And the dog being not treated well, and all that sort of stuff going on. But I can see why that would trigger in her case, given what she's dealing with.
Right.
That would be, oh, well, we'll just do something else.
Well, right, yeah, also like that transference that was happening, especially at the end of it, right? There was this comment that kind of just hit me in the gut, like, what is it? You're gonna
Lock us away like dogs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna lock us up like dogs.
Mhm.
And I think like that was at the core of
Yes.
the greatest fear. Like to me, putting me in a nursing home is locking me up.
Mhm.
It seems to me that some of the reactions depend on how she interacts with the daughter. Like if they get angry, if they fight, if the dog, for instance, and Tamika was kind of harsh. So Dee wants to do something about it, and she might want to just shock her daughter by dying that way.
Yeah, I
It
know.
might be
It's like,
impossible, but
I'll show
I
you.
thought about it
Yes.
before,
You'll be
and it's
sorry.
okay, let's do it today, because I can't take it, I don't want,
Yeah.
and I want her to feel bad. Okay?
Yeah.
She wants her daughter in a way to feel bad.
Yeah. And feel, or also not even like, saying goodbye is so hard and she's not finding the way to say goodbye. So this is a way to avoid saying goodbye. She's like, I can skip that part and just, we'll end it now.
She
And
loves
so
her, but she's fighting, she's like.
how do you say goodbye?
I think she's in a hurry, excuse me, to get something done because she doesn't want to be alone without Howard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so if you take it in your own hands and then you go together,
then I don't have to worry anymore that I'm gonna be alone. And so it seems to me like that might be part of her impulsive behavior.
Cause they are running out of time.
Yeah.
And Howard's finite.
Stay around.
I was gonna ask, have you, when people do have Alzheimer's and some of them go through a stage where they're really combative, is hospice called in right then, or do you wait for the doctor to give them Thorazine or something before you're called?
I had a friend who had to call the police when her mom became combative. So yeah,
It really varies on what supports are in place. You know, if they are in a memory care or a nursing home, they are likely gonna have a care plan in place for when those types of behaviors happen. It's harder at home because oftentimes we're not skilled enough, and we also bring in our own relationship dynamics as well, right? And so it is really hard to kind of separate that and, you know, be a caregiver. Am I a caregiver or am I a wife, right? Or if am I a caregiver or my sister or sibling? So it does complicate things, and it's really kind of up to the caregiver to decide or to lean on whatever supports that they might have in place, whether that's home health or palliative care or some other kind of service they may be already enrolled in. It's hard though.
And medication management, I mean, is a huge, piece of it. And a lot of times people are resistant to taking oral medication, and so, they'll use like an Ativan gel or something that they can, rub it on them without getting in their space and asking them to take, a medication. But it also depends on, are they eating and drinking and, sustaining life outside of, there's behavioral components, and then there's the health component too. It's just sometimes there's so many secondary things that come along when you have behaviors like that. Usually, are they still ambulatory and moving around? And so there's so many variables that could factor into whether or not hospice is appropriate at that time.
Yeah.
Or if it's just
So what's the benefit of calling in palliative care? How does that differ from hospice?
yeah.
The biggest difference is that you have a prognosis longer than 6 months. You usually have a chronic illness that is being exacerbated and that you don't have a plan in place. And so they get you on board for comfort management, but they do not think that you're going to die within 6 months or less.
Are you still allowed to have treatment through your doctor, or does the doctor switch like it does in hospice?
you can still carry your treatments.
Yeah.
Because in hospice, it's like you don't see your doctor anymore.
Because you were anything that would be considered treatment needs to be discontinued.
It's like if you're having cancer and you go to the oncologist.
Right.
And then you stop receiving chemotherapy because it's not gonna do anything anymore. So
Right.
you stop the chemo and then you go into hospice and then all the care comes through hospice.
But it seems like palliative is in
It's,
between hospice and your treatment.
well, palliative
When you would
means
get
just
palliative-
like being comfortable and keeping you, but not curing you. You're not gonna be cured.
Because we couldn't figure out what decision to make. We picked hospice just because it sounded like they were gonna be there more.
Which they have more services are
Right.
with hospice.
But it didn't work out the way we planned. So I'm just wondering, what's the benefit of calling in palliative?
It's like
Other
an
than
extra.
they think you're gonna last a little longer, which we never know.
I mean, I think palliative care, for with anything, I think palliative care is awesome to have on board. It's an extra layer of medical care and support that focuses on kind of balancing everything. You can be certainly seeking curative measures and treating a diagnosis, but that palliative care physician is going to be looking at the whole picture, where the, let's say the oncologist, they're treating cancer, where the palliative doctor is treating you, and you happen to be having cancer. And so they're making sure and looking at the whole picture. How are these medications impacting your quality of life? They're looking at your pain, so you can continue to go on living, but making sure that someone's looking out for you. And because often now, the way our medicine is set up, physicians are very specialized, and you've become a heart and a kidney and the lungs and the liver, and everybody's treating a specific part of you, but no one's treating Melissa. And so that's what the palliative
So
physician
can you
is
have
there.
palliative with a doctor,
Yes.
palliative with hospice? You can have palliative
Hospice,
anytime you want.
hospice is no more curative. Hospice is, you have less than 6 months to live. We cannot cure what you have, but we want to make you comfortable and preserve your quality of life for the time you have. And often in doing that and stopping that curative measure, sometimes those curative measures shorten your lifespan.
Right.
And when you stop those things, you actually improve your quality of life and you live longer. So, I mean, some people, like you're saying, have been on for a year or even 2 years. Some people graduate off hospice.
Yeah.
And so it's really about stopping the curative and looking at quality because they do not see a cure. And if we keep pursuing that cure, we're going to do more damage than good. And your quality of life will be impacted. That's hospice. Palliative is anyone with any diagnosis that you want to make sure you have another set of medical eyes on you, looking at the whole picture, not just these specialized physicians that are just focusing on their responsibility.
So being told you have to choose between one of the three is not necessarily true. I understand between care and hospice, but palliative, we were told you had to pick palliative or hospice. You couldn't have both.
That is true.
That's correct.
Palliative is when you have less than 6 months to live, that's the trigger to go on to hospice, and then palliative care would end. Palliative care can be an indefinite amount of time for somebody that's trying to manage a chronic and progressive illness. You're still seeking curative treatments. Your doctor has not told you, I think you only have 6 months to live. We're still trying to treat that illness. The doctor's treating that disease, and palliative care helps you manage your illness and what the experience is with that illness. Once the doctor says, I think even with curative treatment, or even with all these interventions, I think you only have 6 months to live. Then you're gonna stop being on palliative and you would switch to hospice.
How do you find a palliative doctor, or how do you
Yeah,
get
I was wondering that.
plugged into that?
There are some in Austin, and you could ask your personal physician about adding
Okay.
in. They don't replace your physician. They're just an extra layer that's just focused on you
Okay.
and your quality of life.
Is it like trying to find your primary care physician as well, or are you?
I mean,
trying
they're
to
not as
intervene
many.
them? Okay.
I mean, we worked on palliative care teams for a long time, and so it's definitely one of our passions because we just, you have to manage that chronic and progressive illness, for months. I mean, that's where Dee and Howard, didn't get the support they need. I mean, yes, they have a terminal illness, but we support lots of people that have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or any kind of progressive neurological disease, and they need to help manage all that time before. That's why when we talk about creating a good end of life's experience or a good death, it's the before period, the during, and then the after. And the before period could be right after a diagnosis, and that may be a couple of years that you're managing, that life limiting diagnosis.
So can palliative give any kind of treatment? And my question is, my sister went through Texas Oncology when she decided no more chemo, wasn't working anymore. She still was getting infusions like saline, nutrition, some other kinds of infusion that weren't treating the disease, but they were giving her energy, giving her a little longer time to live. Once we went on hospice, the doctor that was put in charge, who didn't know my sister, decided none of that either. And so that was our big thing. Should we have gone on palliative? That may have done more of just the living support, but not treating the disease, but giving her more sustainable energy to get through the more days. So did we shorten her time by not doing palliative? That was a big question I had.
It could really depend, and I think that's what a lot of people don't know, but advocacy is really important, right? The way that you talk about it to your doctor, especially your hospice doctors. And sometimes it does come to money, and hospices don't want to cover that. That's the reality, which is why you have to advocate and seek other hospices if they're not willing to accommodate your wish. Or also just know that hospice is voluntary. You can get off of it and come on as many times as you want. And some people are scared, like if I get off hospice and I won't be, no, you can get on 10 times if you want to. So if you're not ever getting the care that you feel like you need, or if you don't feel like you're being listened to or heard, getting other opinions, reaching out to other hospices to see if they're able to do something different for you, talking with your doctor. You look like you might want to, no, change your mind.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How would you advise Dee, because her concern is real?
Yeah.
And what would you do to work with her?
Yeah. I thought about this quite a bit, and like I see her in my clients, which I think is it's very well written, because like I hear these voices in my clients, like I see my clients when I hear Dee's voice. And I think what a lot of people are scared of is having these difficult conversations. And so, if Dee was able to get resources, right, and get connected with a therapist, it's, having someone that you can really kind of say these things out loud. Because I think a really big part of therapy and why it can be helpful for people is that, especially when we get older, we have increased loneliness, increased social isolation, and we can get in our head. And the things that we say in our head are often cruel and mean and way harsher than we'd ever say out loud. And so therapy can be a place where you're able to say these out loud without judgment. And honestly, I would lean into this discussion with her. Like, you want to end your life. Let's talk about what options are available. Let's connect you with some death doulas, right? Let's connect you with some resources that might be able to facilitate an improved quality of life, right? Or avoid.
Right, it sounds like with Dolores, it's, to add to what you're saying, it's quality over quantity. She wants to preserve her quality of life. She's not looking, and you were talking about your with palliative versus hospice, or your sister staying on those nutritional supplement or ways of providing nutrition. It's quality over quantity. What's more important? That I'm here longer, or that the time that I am here is the way in which matters to me.
Right.
And so I think just starting there with Dolores, what does quality of life mean to you? When will you know your quality of life is shifting? And that's the time that you'll have a plan. But they're not even talking about quality of life right now. They're just, being impulsive and making decisions. And so,
But it seems to me like Dolores is very stubborn, because there are several moments that Howard says, hey,
Yeah.
there are other options. Why don't we try this? Why? And she just is not having it. So do you think that when it's coming from somebody else, maybe not a loved one, people are more capable of hearing?
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point. I think someone was talking about the daughter, right? And there are so many reasons that we may not know why she can't have these difficult conversations with her daughter. And it kind of leans on something else that I wanted to mention, just clarifying. So the medical power of attorney, Dolores thinks that the medical power of attorney is like signing her life away, right? And many people have this belief, but I will clarify that that's not what a medical power of attorney is. Again, you don't know until you know. A medical power of attorney is a form that when you are unable to make decisions for your medical care because you are unconscious, incapacitated, or not, do not have, the mental bandwidth to do that at that time, then and only then they will reach the medical power of attorney. But it also takes advocacy, because I'm going to say that I've seen many of my clients go to doctor's office with their sibling, or not their siblings, their children. And you go to the doctor's office and the doctor's talking to your children and not the person. And the children want to say, well, I'm the medical power of attorney. That's not what that means. The doctor needs to be serving you. And you may need to remind that doctor of that, because as much as we're all trained and educated to do things a certain way, people slip ups, people make mistakes. So self-advocacy is so important, and knowing these things are really important. There's so many times, like as a hospice social worker, where I had a daughter, brother, or sister call and say, I'm the medical power of attorney. I need you to tell me this information. I'm like, actually, I can't really even tell you if they're a client or not because of HIPAA. But not everybody knows these rules, and it slips up more often than not, excuse me. And that also goes back to the Tamika discussion. Be very wise about assigning your medical power of attorney. People think that it needs to be like the closest person to them. And sometimes that's the case if you have a healthy relationship with that person and are communicating and have an open line of communication. But at the end of the day, that person is gonna be making the most difficult decisions related to your life. And sometimes your children are not gonna be able to do that. And I think at the root of that, I don't think Dee trusts her daughter to make decisions that are in her best interest or decisions that she would want for herself. And if they had discussions, maybe they could get there, right? If they were able to have like a mediator or a round table or whatever, it's possible they could get there. But that isn't in place right now. And without that being in place, like Dee just feels so fearful and out of control.
Right. I mean, in the ideal medical power of attorney is like you were saying, speaks for you when you can't speak. And hopefully you told them what to say. They're not just saying what they want to do. They're supposed to carry out what you would be saying if you could speak. So it's not like you just pick a medical power of attorney. You have serious conversations with your medical power of attorney. And then it's, if you can't do this when the time comes, you're not the best medical power of attorney. And you're right, most of the time it's not the people closest to you. If they can't, if they're not on the same page with what I want. So, and that's the, the purpose of the advanced directives too.
Can I add another thing into the values and all of that in the conversation? Burden. Not wanting to be a burden, in terms of Dolores. Maybe not even caring so much about her values or her quality of life, because all she sees is that she's going to become a burden and wants to avoid that. And, so I just want to bring that up.
I wonder why.
I wonder why. Because that isn't so much about like your value.
It's her value that she isn't a burden. Like she
Yeah.
values not being a burden. But you don't know if you're a burden unless you ask the other person. And I've often had conversations with people where, like in families where, you've had the privilege and honor of, like in our family, caring for an older loved one. And my children watch me care for my mother, and my mother cared for me. And it's like, I want to be able to, I'll say to my mom, let me care for you, because I'm passing on something for my children to observe me caring for others. And I value them seeing that it's important to care for others. Don't rob me of that. It's not a burden to me. Like, I want to do this because to me, it's an opportunity, not only for me to give back, but I'm also paying it forward for the next generation to give when I need something, if I need something, and they don't, and I think, a lot of times people don't realize that you're stopping my mother cared for her mother. So I would say, why are you robbing me of the opportunity to care for you when you know how much you valued caring for your mom? And so it's like, then it's switched from feeling like a burden. And I think it's those conversations, because it's not up to you to say whether you're a burden, it's up to them to tell you, am I being a burden?
And doesn't that require the person believing you when you say, no, you're not a burden? Because if they don't trust that, then they just don't believe you. Like,
They're discussing, what do you value in being the caregiver?
And define
Yeah.
burden.
You may have
Yeah.
a value in that. And so
Yeah.
instead of thinking you're a burden, hear what she's valuing in offering this care. There's a value to it.
You do have to consider Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's is in our family, the women of my family. And once you get to a certain point with Alzheimer's, it is impossible for somebody to have you in their home to keep you safe, to take care of all the angry stage, and then after the angry stage, you get to the accepting stage, and then you're the nice lady who takes your mom out for ice cream. And I did have I took my mom out for ice cream a lot. And one day we were in, I think it was Walmart, or maybe it was Sam's, and we were checking out. And the person checking us out looked at my mother and said, well, I should have noticed. This is your daughter, isn't it? Who's here with you? And my mother looked at her and said, well, she's somebody's daughter, but not mine. And I did laugh. It was not something that I felt really hurt about. I mean, she had Alzheimer's. But you go through things like that. You can do it for a while, but I think full time,
Right.
you need help.
But are you like learning that? So I think, like, I'm sorry, we're like having our therapy session right now. But it feels like we just didn't know about all the resources. Like, it feels like there are so many more things out there that can support people through this that we just didn't know about.
Or even for some period of time that they
Yeah.
could support, besides just putting her into the home immediately.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
different levels of support as you grow through the stages.
And when you feel, or you just don't know that they're out there, you just assume that you're alone and you're assumed that you can't take care of it. And I mean, of course, this was what, 30 years or 20 years ago. So I don't know how things have changed since then. So,
Well, I'm sure they have because there are more resources,
mhm.
but a lot of people do not know what they are.
Well, and
I didn't know about death doulas, and I really am thinking I need to find one.
And what I heard about death doulas is it's very varied in terms of their training and certification, and we need more of them, but it's kind of a risky gamble in terms of getting a good one. And then there's turf fighting about, are you doing what the doctor should be doing? Or are you doing what the legal? So I heard there's a lot of turf fighting about what the doulas should or should not be doing. So, hey, can you guys speak at all to what a
Do you
good death doula looks like?
Do I work with them? In
Yeah.
hospice, we did.
Or end of life doula might be a better word.
Is that a volunteer thing?
Nope.
No,
Yeah.
they can be. I heard they can be. But often they're paid, they're not paid. Some do it
Oh,
volunteer,
I
some
just
do
don't know
it.
anything about it. so.
They're not paid well in general, I heard, so.
Well, I mean, I think it's just like hiring a birth doula. It's very personalized and everybody's experience is unique. And, just like when you're hiring somebody to support you in a process, they need to be a good fit for you and they need to be a good fit for your medical team. You have a lot of people that can support you at end of life. And so there's certainly different people, many different death doulas. I mean, we come from more of a medical background. And so, and we really focus on value guided decisions and making a plan and supporting you. I'm not a death doula that's going to be available to sit and do a vigil with you the last 36 hours of your life. I have a family and work and I can't be of that service. So it kind of, there's a matching of what you need, as far as,
And there's religious rituals and other things that go with it, so.
And I think it's like it's almost like planning anything. They're an event planner, they can be as well. They're helping you plan, the before, during and after phase. And it's all non-medical. We're not here to do any of the medical services, that medical hat comes off. And it's here, it's there to meet your needs, also those environmental needs and those spiritual needs. A good doula would be someone that really listens to what you're envisioning this whole process looking like and what's important to you. And we would do that legwork to make that plan come to fruition. And if it's important for you to have all your loved ones around you at the end, we would comfort and get the family comfortable in doing that. We don't have to be there, but we're preparing the family to know exactly what your wishes are and how you want this. And that's so comforting to the family because sometimes they want to be there. They have no idea what to do. It's like birth. You bring a husband into the delivery room and they know nothing about birth. They will be freaked out. But if you give them all the information about, there's gonna be vomiting, there's gonna be pain, there's gonna be blood, but it's all part of the process, they're much more comfortable being present and being there for the mom. It's the same thing with the family being there for the loved one. If they can know what the whole thing looks like and they're confident and at peace, they don't have to make impulsive decisions. Am I supposed to call the hospital? No, you don't need the hospital. They can be home. You don't need a doctor. to go through the process. They need to feel supported, and you need to feel supported as the loved ones. So that's what the doulas can help do. But by all means, you would interview and find out if it's a match with anything.
Because there's not required licensing per se, like there are with birth doulas, as there are with end-of-life doulas. That's
Right now, yes.
legally, and I'm a little familiar with the law in that area.
Right.
And that's part of the challenges right now is they won't get as much in trouble by doing X, Y, or Z legally that a birth doula would because of the lack of required certification and training.
I would say it's very similar to, finding a therapist, like even pulling out something, there's so many different kinds of
Well,
certifications.
we have huge licensing for
But
that.
there's nothing medical. They're there for
But there's
emotional
different kinds
support.
of life,
Right.
So it's like if I'm
saying.
sorry.
No, it's right.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just saying, an array of professionals as it's different genres, yeah, which going back to like the making sure that one's right for you, there's just so many different genres of it, and so the different ones have different certifications, and which ones meet your style, and just kind of more of the unfortunate research that more work to done.
We can obviously talk about it forever, but we always run out of time. So do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with everybody about this episode, about you, about your work, anything?
Oh my goodness. I love the work that I do because I think growth can happen at any age. And I think learning is just never ending. And so whether it is learning about resources in the community or working on yourself or just kind of talking about things that are left unsaid, it's never too late to start doing that. Yeah, thank you for having me. I had such a wonderful conversation with y'all. I loved it. Thank you.
They have one. Did you end it? No, okay, because I have one little behind the scenes story for everyone.
Oh.
So the employee, you met Dana, so people who were here last time met Dana, our producer. She played the employee on here. And we were in the recording studio and Richard and Mimi were sitting there with their headphones on. And we had the ability to bring somebody in on the monitor right there. So Dana was in California. They did not know that she was going to read opposite of them for this. So she comes on with that voice and the volume level, the sound engineer had it at the wrong volume level. And so it was so loud and you saw them go like, and they were like making this like physical pain of like this person. It was so funny.
The voice of God, maybe.
I like it. And they were like so disgusted with her. She did a great job. So
I have nominated that character for most hateful character so
far.
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote at the end.
No
Like,
reaction.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This dog is gone.
So I have a question I want to throw out since I won't be here we won't be in the next couple weeks, and that is, what about how the kids are gonna feel if they were to successfully pass and the guilt they're gonna feel of not being able to be there for them and not thinking Dee and Howard, what they're going to leave their children behind feeling like with that.
And
Yeah,
that's
oh my gosh.
a really good question. So that's why we did something.
For 5 minutes.
That'd be like, Dad, yeah.
That's the lack of communication.
Yeah.
That's them not having conversation.
Yeah, you find, yeah.
Like, this is your death though, so
Yeah.
like, unfortunate circumstance, but it's your life.
Let's move on.
And the really fun thing is that is a really great question. What are we gonna do? So the ending, actually, we have two options for the ending. So it's a choose your own ending. So we will have to decide together if we want to follow like Dolores and Howard and, their wishes, or if they end up talking to their family. So we have those two options for our last thing, but you can listen to
I'll
both
call
on
you.
your vacation. Very good.
The great thing about technology is then you can just backtrack and listen to the other option if you don't.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's not what I wanted. So, oh, okay.